Many people spend years believing they are learning how to live. Every difficult experience becomes another lesson to analyze. Every setback becomes something to understand. Every success becomes something to repeat. You tell yourself that every mistake is making you wiser, that every challenge is preparing you for something, that eventually all of these experiences will come together into one clear understanding of how life works. So you keep reading, keep listening, keep reflecting, keep searching for the next insight that might finally make everything fit together. Even spiritual growth can quietly become another project, another collection of ideas, another series of practices, another attempt to become someone who finally understands life well enough that uncertainty no longer feels uncomfortable. It rarely looks like fear. It usually looks like curiosity. It feels responsible. It feels mature. It feels as though you are doing exactly what life is asking of you. But beneath all of that searching often lives one very quiet assumption. If I learn enough, if I understand enough, if I become wise enough, eventually life will stop surprising me. The mind imagines that one day uncertainty will disappear, that enough understanding will finally produce lasting stability. But without noticing it, that assumption asks the nervous system to remain quietly prepared for a future moment that never actually arrives. Instead of fully meeting the life that is already here, it remains gently waiting for the day it finally believes it has figured life out. The deeper pattern isn't curiosity. Curiosity is open. It welcomes surprise. It enjoys discovery without needing certainty. What quietly drives so much of our searching is something different. It is the desire to become certain enough that life can no longer unsettle us. The nervous system begins to believe that safety depends on knowing enough before acting. If you can gather enough experience and learn enough principles, develop enough awareness, then perhaps you will finally know exactly what to do. So experience slowly changes its purpose. Instead of simply being lived, it becomes something to collect. A conversation becomes another lesson. A relationship becomes another opportunity to understand yourself. A disappointment becomes evidence of what still needs healing. A success becomes proof that you're finally getting somewhere. Even ordinary moments begin to feel as though they must produce something useful. Nothing is allowed to simply be. Everything must become knowledge. The future becomes a destination that today's learning is preparing you to reach. This pattern often follows people into spirituality. Awakening begins with genuine recognition. There is relief. There is openness. There is the quiet discovery that life is far more mysterious and intimate than the mind ever imagined. But gradually, without noticing, even awakening can become another identity. I am someone becoming more conscious. I am progressing. I am reaching higher levels. The search continues, only now it wears spiritual language instead of worldly language. The structure has not changed, only the vocabulary has. But chapter 16 points toward a very different maturity. It suggests that life has never been trying to give you enough information to control it. It has never been asking you to accumulate understanding until uncertainty disappears. Instead, life has always been inviting something much simpler: participation. Not standing outside experience trying to interpret it, but entering it completely. Not asking every moment what it means, but allowing the moment to reveal its own intelligence. Every experience already contains what it came to offer. Every conversation, every challenge, every season of uncertainty. Nothing arrives empty. The mind believes it must extract meaning from life, but life has never hidden its meaning. Meaning is already present, inside the experience itself. As the need to analyze begins to soften, something remarkable happens. You stop relating to life as a student collecting lessons. You begin relating to life as a participant in an ongoing conversation. There is less distance between you and what is happening, less interpretation, less management, less waiting until you understand enough to fully engage. And in that direct participation, life begins teaching you from within the experience itself, not through explanation, not through accumulated knowledge, but through the quiet intelligence that has always been moving within every moment you are willing to fully meet. There comes a quiet moment when something fundamental begins to change. You notice that life is no longer asking to be understood before it can be lived. It is simply asking to be met. This is not the abandonment of wisdom. It is the end of postponing your life until you feel wise enough. As this shift deepens, decision-making begins to feel different, not because every choice suddenly becomes obvious, but because the pressure to find the perfect choice begins to dissolve. You no longer believe that one decision will determine the rest of your life. You begin trusting that life continues responding after every step you take. Each choice reveals the next. Each movement creates new conditions. Each experience offers fresh information that could never have been known beforehand. Life is no longer something you solve before participating. Participation itself becomes the source of clarity. Relationships begin to change as well. Instead of entering conversations already preparing your response, trying to understand what the other person means, or analyzing what every interaction says about you, you become more available to what is actually unfolding. Listening becomes less about interpretation and more about contact. You notice expressions, silence, tone, the subtle movements beneath words. You are no longer searching for hidden meaning. You are simply present enough to receive what is already being communicated. Ironically, this makes understanding much deeper, not because you analyze more, but because you interfere less. Much of our effort comes from trying to predict every possible outcome before we begin. We build elaborate strategies because uncertainty feels unsafe. We try to eliminate surprise before taking action. But creativity has never emerged from complete certainty. It has always emerged through participation. When you stop trying to control every variable, your attention becomes available again. Ideas appear naturally. Solutions emerge while you are engaged rather than while you're planning. Work becomes less about managing reality and more about responding to it. Even difficulty begins to feel different. Previously, every challenge interrupted the life you thought you were supposed to be living. Problems delayed progress. Obstacles prevented peace. Unexpected events pulled you away from your path. But gradually another possibility appears. What if the interruption is the path? What if the challenge is not preventing the conversation, but continuing it? Chapter 16 suggests something remarkably simple. Circumstance itself becomes the teacher. Relationship clarifies without analysis. Challenge reorganizes the nervous system without struggle, because intelligence moves directly from perception into action. You stop asking every experience, "What should this mean?" Instead, your attention naturally rests on a different question. What is being asked of me right here? That question changes everything. The nervous system no longer needs to pause reality long enough to understand it before responding. It discovers that understanding often arrives through responding. Action becomes cleaner, rest becomes easier, listening becomes deeper, presence quietly replaces preparation. And perhaps the greatest change is this. Life stops feeling like a sequence of problems waiting to be solved. It becomes an ongoing dialogue. Each moment responds to the one before it. Each experience invites the next. Nothing stands outside the conversation. Nothing is separate from the unfolding intelligence already moving through your life. You are no longer standing beside the river trying to understand its direction. You have quietly stepped into the current, and the movement that once felt uncertain begins carrying you, one living moment at a time. When people hear the word trust, they often imagine believing more strongly, having more faith, becoming more positive, trying harder not to doubt. But the trust chapter 16 points toward is something much quieter. It is not something you create. It is something that begins to appear when you stop interrupting the intelligence already moving through life. This isn't about becoming passive. It isn't about waiting for life to make every decision for you. It isn't about abandoning responsibility or pretending uncertainty no longer exists. And it certainly isn't about ignoring wisdom or refusing to learn. Learning remains beautiful. Experience continues to deepen you. Understanding continues to mature. But there comes a point where learning quietly changes its purpose. It is no longer collected as protection. It is no longer accumulated in the hope that one day you will finally know enough to control life. You begin to recognize when learning itself has become another form of control, another way of postponing direct participation, another attempt to stand outside experience rather than entering it completely. As that recognition deepens, something begins to soften in the body. The nervous system gradually stops waiting for complete certainty before allowing itself to relax. The body begins to trust its own capacity to respond, not because it already knows every answer, but because it discovers it has never needed to. Presence no longer feels like something you must maintain. Awareness is no longer a state you work to preserve. You stop checking whether you are awake enough, mindful enough, regulated enough, or spiritual enough. The constant inner supervision begins to dissolve. There is less monitoring, less correcting, less effort to remain aligned. And with that, an extraordinary simplicity begins to emerge. The nervous system relaxes because it discovers something it had overlooked for years. Life has always been responding intelligently. Long before your analysis, long before your conclusions, long before your plans, every breath has arrived without your management. Every heartbeat has continued without your supervision. Every season has unfolded without your permission. The same intelligence that moves the tides, opens flowers, and forms galaxies has never stopped moving through your own life. You were simply trying to help it, and perhaps it never needed your management, only your participation. This is why the chapter describes the end of practitioner identity so gently. There is nothing left to remember, nothing left to perform, nothing left to maintain, nothing left to become, only participation, only meeting this moment exactly as it arrives, without adding another layer of self-improvement, without searching for another technique, without wondering whether you are doing life correctly. This is not the disappearance of care, it is the disappearance of unnecessary effort. Life is no longer something that must be carefully managed from a distance. It is met directly, quietly, openly, intimately. And perhaps that is what maturity has always looked like. Not becoming someone who has mastered life, but becoming so available to life that there is no longer any distance between living and learning. Perhaps life has never been asking you to become wiser. Perhaps it has only been asking you to become more available to this breath, this conversation, this uncertainty, this ordinary moment that never needed to become extraordinary before it could reveal its truth. Perhaps every experience has already been complete before your mind tried to understand it. Perhaps nothing has ever arrived unfinished. Perhaps what felt confusing was never life itself, but the habit of standing outside it, trying to explain what could only be known by living it. Perhaps the deepest intelligence has never arrived through analysis. Perhaps it has always appeared through direct contact, through listening before interpreting, through responding before concluding, through allowing each moment to reveal itself without asking it to become something else. Maybe awakening was never about collecting better answers. Maybe it was never about reaching the point where uncertainty disappeared. Maybe it was discovering that life has been speaking continuously through every joy, every disappointment, every relationship, every silence, every beginning, and every ending. Not offering instructions, but inviting participation. Perhaps the path has never been leading somewhere else. Perhaps it has always been inviting you more completely into where you already are. And perhaps the final lesson has never been something you learn. Perhaps it is not another understanding to collect or another realization to remember. Perhaps it is the quiet realization that life has never stopped teaching because life has never stopped living itself through you. That every moment has always carried its own perfect intelligence, that nothing has ever been outside the conversation, and that you were never separate from the one who has been teaching, loving, living, and quietly awakening through you all along.